Actually, when Raman Maharaj was reading out about from Tamal Krishna Maharaj's diary about that time, and he spoke about the few flowers that were saved for the Pushpa Samadhi in Mayapur. I was in Brahmatrini in Mayapur at the time, and I remember when a day or two later, maybe 2 days later, Bhakti True Maharaj was carrying a large metal truck, you know, the old style Indian trucks, and he was carrying it on his head, walking up the path to the temple, and I was cleaning Prabhupada's quarters at that time. And then when I went the next morning to clean the quarters, all over Srila Prabhupada's bed were the pushpas, the Pushpa Samadhi. So it was a very, when I first saw that, it was really like a stab in the heart, because the realization hit home that Prabhupada was not, going to come to Mayapur again in his wonderful Vapu form. And I resisted the temptation to take any of those flowers, although I could have, but I felt that it would have been an aparad for me to do that, because they're non-different from Prabhupada's actual samadhi. So when the samadhi, the Pushpa Samadhi, was installed in Mayapur, there were just a few of us there. There was a big hole dug, and Prabhupada's sister Pishima was there, and her grief was even more than our grief. And I had to physically hold her arm, because I thought that she was going to throw herself into the Pushpa Samadhi pit. Her grief was so intense. So that reminded me of that pastime. Thank you. My dear most Srila Prabhupada, I remember so clearly the very first day that I saw you. It was early 1973, and you had arrived earlier than expected. I was only 21 and had been living in the Burnett Street Melbourne Temple for just a few weeks. Every second sentence I had heard the devotees speak included your name. Prabhupada said this, Prabhupada did that, Prabhupada liked this, Prabhupada didn't like that. And, it was informing all the eager listeners, because we're all so eager to hear about Srila Prabhupada. I'd never met him. So this particular time you arrived early, and of course without mobile phones or even a reliable landline, Prabhupada often would arrive either early or late at a temple. So in this particular incident, everyone had left to go and meet Prabhupada at the airport, but he arrived early. So there were just a couple of devotees in the temple. And then suddenly from upstairs in the Brahmatrini room, I heard that wonderful call that we all love. What is that call? Prabhupada's here! So I could hear that, Prabhupada's here, Prabhupada's here. And I went running to the top of the stairs, and Burnett Street was a little terrace. So when you looked down the stairs, you could see the front door. And Srila Prabhupada was just, couldn't have been choreographed any better. I got to the top of the stairs, and then the devotee had opened the door for Prabhupada, and Prabhupada stood framed in that doorway, and it had such impact on me. You stood framed in the doorway like a divine image bordered in wood. The sunlight filtered behind you and the bright blue sky. Prabhupada, I felt that I had finally found my eternal teacher. I was so inexperienced in life and scarcely knew much of the world, but I knew this much, that you were not an ordinary man of this world, but something beyond description. The graceful, so beautiful, and the pure emissary of the spiritual world. I know to some ears that may sound like an exaggeration. Someone may think, oh, well, I feel the same way about my spiritual master, that one feels the same way about their spiritual master. They might think, oh, that's the love of the disciple waxing lyrical. But for every one of us who saw Srila Prabhupada's physical form, his Vapu form, that is exactly how we all felt. Every one of us who saw Prabhupada felt that same way. It really is beyond a verbal description, or at least beyond my capacity to describe. The picture in my mind's eye of you standing in that doorway has actually sustained me all through my life. Then I was young and strong. Now I'm feeling the pains of old age. But Prabhupada, you've given us all a transformed life, yet a seemingly sleepless one, I have to say, when I first joined. It seemed like we never slept, compared to how I could sleep as long as I liked before I became a devotee. And we would chant all day, walking up and down Burke Street. If you wanted a drink of water, you had to run to the traffic lights, had a sip on the little water fountain, and then cross with the devotees. And we did that all day. And then we returned to Little Burnett Street late in the afternoon. We'd feel exhausted, harassed by the rangers. We'd feel the mire of the city weighing heavily on us. Then we'd shower, and we'd come into the temple, and there'd be a wonderful arati, and then everyone would be dancing in ecstasy like we had been resting all day. The icy water showers and Burnett's strange and smelly seatless toilet at the rear of the small courtyard were indeed austerities that my previously indulgent life had not prepared me for. But Srila Prabhupada, despite the strangeness of this new lifestyle, you gave us real life, a joyous, meaningful life, and Prabhupada's giving that to all of us. We could not get enough of hearing about you, Prabhupada, and I still cannot get enough of hearing about you, my Divine Master. You are our linchpin and the person whom I most want to see when I finally reach your lotus feet in the spiritual world. Although I don't think it will happen in this life, I pray to Krishna that he will allow me to be reunited with you as your disciple in your ISKCON. In the spiritual world. There I will see all my God brothers and God sisters, excuse me, in their Sarupsiddhi forms, and will know it's you, Srila Prabhupada. You made us a promise, and we just have to keep up our end of the bargain. Such is your mercy that you're revealing yourself through your magnificent books, some of which we can see here so beautifully displayed to the next generations. They love you too, Srila Prabhupada, and have dedicated their young lives to following this wonderful life you have given us. And there's a lot more, but I'm not going to read that all. I'd just like to say in conclusion, Srila Prabhupada, this day is such a difficult day for your disciples as we feel that intense separation from you. In this life, we won't be able to see that wonderful form like we used to. We don't hear that call, Prabhupada is here, that made our hearts burst with joy and deep love. But we will. I have firm faith in that. And in our hearts we know that you have never really left us. You are living still in sound and the preaching work that is executed on your order. Please keep this unqualified disciple as a special mercy case and keep me sheltered at your lotus feet. Jai Srila Prabhupada. Hare Krishna.